My dad stood up at my sister's engagement party, called me his mistake, and my whole family laughed. So I quietly walked out. Later, they flooded my phone with texts and calls demanding I come back. I'm 26, and this happened a few months ago at a family gathering. It's been on my mind a lot, and I still can't quite figure out how I feel about it. Let me set the scene for you. It was a Sunday afternoon, and we were all gathering at my parents' house to celebrate my younger sister Emily getting engaged. Emily is the baby of the family. And I'll admit, I've always felt like the odd one out. I'm the middle child, so you can imagine how that goes. I've always had to work twice as hard for any kind of attention or validation. Travis, my older brother, has always been the perfect son. And Emily, well, she's the golden child, at least in my dad's eyes. I don't want to make this sound like a pity party, but my relationship with my dad, Rick, has always been complicated. He's not a terrible person, but he's very focused on appearances and success. And when it comes to me, it's like he's always had these subtle and not so subtle jabs about how I'm not as good as Travis or Emily. I spent years internalizing it, trying to convince myself it didn't bother me, but there's only so much a person can take, you know. Anyway, we're all at the house for the engagement party. The usual family stuff, snacks, people mingling, small talk. I wasn't expecting anything crazy. It's just another family event, right? At some point during the gathering, Rick stands up to make a toast. I knew it was coming. He's the type of person who loves to be the center of attention at any event. So he gets up, clears his throat, and starts going on about how proud he is of Emily, how she's turned out to be such a great person, how he's looking forward to her wedding, all that typical dad stuff. And then he says something like, "And of course we can't forget Oliver, my middle child, my oops baby." I honestly thought I misheard him at first. The room got quiet for a split second, and then I realized what he had just said. Oops baby. That's how he just described me in front of everyone. Now, I don't know if Rick was trying to be funny, but there was a moment of silence before a few people awkwardly chuckled. Emily and Travis were laughing along with everyone else, and my mom was smiling politely like this was just some regular family joke. But inside, I felt like I was drowning. I could feel my chest tighten, my breath getting shallow. It wasn't just the joke, it was the casual way he said it, like it was a well-known fact, like it was something I was supposed to accept and laugh off. He continued saying, "Yeah, Oliver, he came a little too early. A bit of a surprise, but hey, he turned out all right. He's here now, right?" I could feel my face getting hot, my hands trembling. It wasn't even the first time he'd made some remark about me being a mistake. He'd done it before, but it was always under his breath or just between him and my mom. This time he did it in front of everyone, and everyone laughed. I don't know why it hit me so hard this time, but it did. It was like he was treating me like a joke, like I wasn't even worth a second thought. And no one seemed to care. I looked around at the people I'd known my whole life, and I felt like an outsider. My dad, the man who was supposed to have my back, was up there in front of everyone casually humiliating me. I don't know how long I stood there before I snapped out of it, but I couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't be the punchline. Without saying a word, I grabbed my purse, stood up, and walked out of the room. The last thing I heard was my dad still talking, trying to get a laugh out of something else. I'm not sure if anyone noticed I was leaving at first, but I didn't care. I didn't tell anyone I was leaving. I didn't feel the need to explain myself. I just wanted to get out of there. The drive home was a blur. I remember gripping the steering wheel so tight my knuckles were white. I didn't even turn on the radio, just drove in silence, trying to calm myself down. But I couldn't stop thinking about what happened, about how easy it was for my dad to make me the butt of his joke, about how everyone just went along with it. It felt like everything I'd been feeling for years had just come to a head in that moment. When I got home, I didn't even bother calling anyone. I didn't want to talk to anyone. I didn't want to hear what they had to say about it. The only thing I did was text Emily and tell her I was sorry, but I couldn't stay. She tried calling me immediately, but I ignored it. I didn't want to hear her excuses or her telling me I was being too sensitive. I didn't want to hear any of it. For the next few hours, my phone was blowing up. I could see the texts coming in. First from Emily, then from Travis, and finally from Rick. They were all asking where I went, why I left, what was wrong. I didn't respond. I couldn't. That night, I just sat in my room scrolling through social media, trying to distract myself from everything that had happened. But I couldn't stop thinking about it. About how my dad had turned something that should have been a celebration into something that felt like an insult. And about how even after everything, I didn't know how to face them. The next few days felt like a blur, but not in the way that makes you forget things. It was more like my life had been turned into this endless loop of messages, calls, and voices in my head telling me I was the problem. My phone didn't stop buzzing. Rick was calling every few hours, leaving angry voicemails. Emily and Travis texted constantly asking what was going on, telling me I was being dramatic. I couldn't handle it. It was like they were all trying to gaslight me into believing I was overreacting. I didn't respond. I couldn't. But that didn't stop them. On the third day after the party, my mom Karen finally sent me a text. It was short and to the point. Oliver, I don't know what's going on with you, but Rick is upset. You need to call him. We're all really disappointed in how you handled things. Don't make this worse. I stared at her message for a long time. I wasn't sure what hurt more, the fact that she was siding with Rick, or that she couldn't even see why I was upset. I had spent years trying to win her approval, trying to be the son she wanted me to be. But here she was defending Rick as if everything was fine and I was the one who'd caused all the chaos. But it wasn't just that. I had this sinking feeling that she was trying to make me feel guilty for leaving. It was like they all wanted me to apologize for being hurt. They all wanted me to pretend like it didn't matter when Rick called me a mistake in front of everyone. I couldn't believe it was happening. That night, Rick left me another voicemail. This one was different. There was less anger in his voice, but more condescension. He spoke in that tone I'd heard so many times growing up. The one that always made me feel small, like I was some kind of inconvenience. Oliver, I've been thinking about everything. I know you've got a lot of emotions right now, but you need to understand something. I didn't mean to hurt you. It was just a joke and everyone laughed. Maybe you need to lighten up a little bit. You've got to stop being so sensitive. It's been years and I'm still waiting for you to grow up. I sat there holding my phone, the words echoing in my mind. Still waiting for you to grow up. That's what he'd said. And I realized something. My dad had always thought I was the one who needed to change. He had always thought I was the problem. I wasn't the one who needed to grow up. I was the one who had been treated like a child my entire life. No matter how old I got, no matter how hard I worked, no matter how much I achieved, it was never enough. I couldn't even bring myself to listen to the rest of the message. I deleted it immediately. It wasn't just Rick. Emily was calling me nonstop. And each time I ignored her, the messages got worse. At first, she was trying to be understanding, asking if I was okay. But by the third day, she was sending texts like, "Come on, Ollie. It's been long enough. This is ridiculous. You can't just stay mad forever." And then there was this one. "I get that you're hurt, but this is family. You're being selfish right now. You're hurting all of us, not just yourself." That hit hard. It was the same thing Rick had always done. Turning the situation around and making it about how my actions were the problem, not what they had done to me. Emily, who had always been a bit of a people pleaser, was now parroting everything Rick had ever said. She was siding with him, telling me to let it go. And then there was Travis. I hadn't heard from him for a while, and I guess I'd been hoping he would be the one to call me out of the blue, the one who would see how messed up this was. But no, he sent me a text, and it was almost exactly like Emily's. "You've really gone too far this time, Ollie. You're just making everything harder for all of us. Stop being so dramatic." It stung, but not as much as Rick's words. Travis had always been Rick's golden child. He could do no wrong in Rick's eyes. And I guess that had rubbed off on him because now he was defending Rick too. It was like everyone had taken sides, and I was the one left alone on the outside with no one even trying to understand why I felt the way I did. I don't know how long I sat there staring at my phone, but I finally reached a breaking point. I couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't be the one to keep holding this family together when no one else cared enough to do the same for me. I couldn't be the one who always made the sacrifices, who always tried to make peace, only to be ignored, belittled, or even worse, made the joke of the entire family. That's when I made my decision. I was done. I wasn't going to let them treat me like this anymore. I wasn't going to beg for their approval, and I wasn't going to sit around waiting for them to change their minds about me. But what I didn't expect was how quickly things escalated after that. The phone calls didn't stop, and the messages kept pouring in. But this time, there was a different tone. Now they were starting to get angry. Rick was demanding an explanation. Emily was accusing me of ruining everything. And Travis? Well, Travis was the worst of all. He called me a drama queen and said I was going to destroy the family if I didn't come back. I didn't know what to do. I wanted to stay strong, but I felt the weight of everything bearing down on me. The pressure was building, and I wasn't sure how much longer I could hold out. But just as I was about to buckle under the pressure, something happened that made me realize I couldn't back down. I got a text from Rick. It was short, but it was the final straw. He wrote, "You really are the problem here, Oliver. Maybe if you stop being so selfish and childish, you could be part of this family again." The message from Rick hit me harder than any of the others. Maybe if you stopped being so selfish and childish, you could be part of this family again. His words burned in a way that was different from the others. This wasn't just a call for me to apologize, it was a dismissal. It was Rick finally putting it all out there. I wasn't good enough for him, and I never had been. He wasn't just upset about the situation anymore. He was making it clear that I was the one who needed to change if I wanted to fit in with the family. I stared at the screen for a long time. I could feel my hand shaking, but not from fear. No, this was anger. Pure anger. It wasn't just what he'd said, it was everything. All the years of feeling like I had to prove myself to win his approval only for him to dismiss me as a mistake. All the moments I'd spent feeling invisible, always in the background while Travis and Emily got the praise. All the times I'd stayed silent, trying to keep the peace, trying to be the good son, the good brother, because that's what was expected of me. Well, no more. I put my phone down and walked to the small desk I had in the corner of my room. There in a drawer I had a notebook where I'd written down a lot of the things I've been thinking about over the years. A lot of it was just scribbled thoughts, things I didn't dare say aloud to anyone, especially not to Rick. But in that moment, I knew it was time to start putting everything into motion. I couldn't keep being quiet, and I wasn't going to let them think I was the one in the wrong anymore. I grabbed a pen and began to write. I wasn't going to take it anymore. This wasn't about just walking away from a family event. It was about standing up for myself, showing them all that I was done letting them trample on me. I wasn't the one who needed to apologize. I wasn't the one who'd made a mistake. The first step was getting my finances in order. My job was steady enough that I could afford to live independently. I've been slowly building up a savings account over the last few years just in case. I'd always known that at some point I might have to leave, and now it felt like that time had come. I spent the next few days carefully planning. I wasn't going to confront them head on. No, that wouldn't be satisfying enough. I needed to make them feel what I'd been feeling all these years, the pain of being invisible, of always having to prove my worth. I started with Rick's business. He had this small but moderately successful construction company. It wasn't huge, but he was proud of it. In fact, the company had been his identity for years. The only thing he ever seemed to care about was making it grow, and he loved bragging about it at family gatherings. It was the only time he ever seemed remotely happy with himself, but it also made him insufferable. For weeks I've been gathering little details, things I knew would hurt his pride, things I knew would hit him where it hurt the most. His company wasn't as solid as he thought. There were cracks in the foundation, his employees weren't as loyal as he believed, and some of his business dealings were a bit more questionable than he cared to admit. I didn't want to destroy his business, but I did want to make him feel what I'd felt. The slow realization that everything he'd built might not be as stable as he thought. So I contacted a few people. It wasn't illegal, not exactly, but I did gather enough information to make things uncomfortable for him. A couple of calls, a few rumors spread to the right people, and suddenly his reputation was starting to fray at the edges. Nothing too obvious, just enough to make him second-guess everything. Meanwhile, Emily and Travis continued to text me. They were relentless. They didn't understand why I wouldn't just come back, why I was making everything so complicated. The texts were getting harsher now. Emily accused me of ruining the family and acting like a child. Travis sent me long messages about how I needed to get over myself and stop dragging everyone down with my drama. I didn't respond. I didn't even feel tempted to. But Rick? He was a different story. I could feel the pressure building with every call and text. He wasn't just angry anymore. He was desperate. I could tell from his messages that something was starting to go wrong with his business. The rumors were getting louder and he didn't like it. But instead of admitting that things were starting to slip, he was blaming me for everything. It was like he thought I had somehow orchestrated all of it. He even said in one message, "If you don't come back, you'll be responsible for ruining everything I've worked for." It was hard not to laugh. The way he could twist everything. A week passed and things started to escalate. Rick's business began to experience problems. There were complaints about delayed projects, and some of his clients were starting to back out of deals. It was nothing major, but it was enough to make Rick nervous. He had never been good at handling stress, and the pressure was getting to him. I could tell he was sending me messages more often now, demanding I talk to him. He even threatened to come to my apartment if I didn't respond. At that point, I knew it was time. I wasn't going to just leave quietly. This was my revenge, and I had to make sure he understood exactly why I'd done it. I wasn't going to let him keep pretending like I was the problem, like I was the mistake in his life. I wanted him to see that I was done. So one evening, when I knew he would be home, I did something I knew would hit him hard. I sent him a message, short to the point. Enjoy the fallout. I'm done pretending I'm your punching bag. Then I blocked his number. The day I blocked Rick's number, I felt a strange mixture of relief and empowerment. The chaos had been building for so long that it was almost like I'd been holding my breath, just waiting for the right moment to finally exhale. I wasn't just taking a step back from my family, I was taking control of my life, of my happiness. It wasn't just about revenge anymore, it was about me. The aftermath was as intense as I expected. I don't think anyone could have predicted just how much everything would unravel after I stepped away. I thought the worst of it was over, but honestly, that was when the storm really started. Rick was furious. I could feel it even before I heard from him. Every couple of hours, my phone buzzed with messages from him demanding I explain myself. At first, it was the typical, "you're being ridiculous" messages. Then it started getting personal. "You really think this is the answer?" He wrote. "You think I don't care about you. You think I'm some monster. You're wrong, Oliver. You've always been wrong." I didn't respond. Not once. It was hard. But every time I even thought about giving in, I reminded myself of that night. How he had made that joke in front of everyone. How he had embarrassed me without even a second thought. I wasn't the one who needed to apologize. He was. Meanwhile, the pressure on his business continued to mount. It wasn't just the rumors. Now people were starting to talk openly about his failed projects. He had contractors pulling out of jobs, suppliers backing out of deals, and worst of all, his clients were questioning his credibility. It wasn't a full-on collapse, but it was enough to make him panic. One afternoon, I got an unexpected knock on my door. When I opened it there, he was standing in front of me, looking more disheveled than I'd ever seen him. He hadn't shaved, his shirt was wrinkled, and he just looked like a man who had lost his grip on everything. "Oliver," he said, his voice surprisingly low, "can we talk?" I didn't let him in right away. I stood there for a moment just looking at him. I had to admit, I hadn't been expecting this. "No, Rick?" I replied, my voice steady. "There's nothing left to talk about." His expression shifted. Surprise, confusion, then anger. "You don't even care anymore, do you? You think this is the way things should be? Me begging for you to come back to the family?" I didn't flinch. "You're the one who made me leave. Remember, I didn't choose this. You made it clear that I was never good enough. And now you're upset because I'm not playing along anymore." He looked like he might say something else, but he didn't. Instead, he just stood there, his shoulders slumped, defeated. It almost felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. I could see the reality setting in for him. His business wasn't recovering as quickly as he thought it would. Emily and Travis were growing impatient with him. His perfect little family was unraveling, and I was the symbol of that unraveling. "Look," I said, after a moment, "I'm not here to ruin your life. I'm not here to destroy your business, but I am done being your punching bag. I've spent my whole life waiting for you to love me, and I'm done. You've made it clear how you feel, and I can't keep pretending like I don't see it anymore." For a long time, he didn't say anything. He just stood there, his jaw tight, and then finally he nodded. It wasn't a big gesture, but it was enough for me to understand that he knew exactly what I was saying. "You've made your point," he said quietly, and then he left. It wasn't the dramatic confrontation I had imagined, but it was enough. I had taken back control, and somehow that felt more satisfying than any explosion of anger or revenge ever could. I didn't need his apology, and I certainly didn't need his approval. Over the next few months, things slowly began to settle. Rick's business never fully recovered, but it wasn't as bad as I thought it would be. Emily and Travis eventually stopped calling. They had their own lives to deal with, and I think they realized that I wasn't coming back, no matter how much they tried to guilt-trip me. My mom sent a few half-hearted texts, but nothing too personal. It was as though they had all finally accepted that I wasn't part of the game anymore. I still haven't heard from Rick. I'm sure he's still bitter, but at this point, I'm just glad to be free of it all. I've learned that I don't need them. I never did. I don't regret walking away even if it was hard. I haven't spoken to my family since the day I blocked their numbers. There were a few attempts at first birthday texts from Emily that I left unread, a drunk voicemail from Travis around Christmas, and one letter from my mom that I burned without opening. Rick never reached out again. I heard through a distant cousin that his company stabilized but lost 2 major contracts. He doesn't throw big family parties anymore. I don't know if that's because of me or just life catching up with him. Either way, it doesn't keep me up at night. I go hiking on weekends. I've started cooking actual meals instead of eating like a stressed college student, and I'm seeing someone, Sarah, who laughs at my jokes instead of laughing at me. She knows the whole story. She says I didn't burn bridges. I finally stopped standing on one that was already on fire. Sometimes I still feel the old ache when I see happy family photos on social media, but it passes quicker each time. I've learned that peace isn't loud. It's quiet mornings with no notifications, evenings where my worth isn't measured by someone else's approval, and the simple realization that I was never the mistake. My dad may have called me an accident, but I turned that accident into a man who finally chose himself, and that's more than enough.